Welcome to the Redeemer University podcast. I'm your host, Zach, and today we're going to be discussing experiential learning at Redeemer through co-op placements. Joining me is current Redeemer student Michelle Visser. Our discussion is based around Michelle's experience in her co-op placement, but also how her education at Redeemer combined with her co-op placements are helping prepare Michelle for her future. If this is your first time here, make sure to like and subscribe. Check out some of our other episodes that discuss various aspects of Redeemer Christian education and so much more. Thank you for making us part of your day, and with that, here we go. And I am pleased to welcome in the one, the only, Michelle Visser. Michelle, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, and so anyone who's watching today, we are talking about experiential learning. We had a great interview with Matthew earlier, from the Career Center perspective. We thought it would be useful to talk to an actual Redeemer student right here, and that's Michelle. That's where you come in. So, Michelle, could you just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself? What are you studying at Redeemer? What year are you in? And what kind of co-ops have you been doing?
So I'm a honors BBA management concentration student. I'm in my 5th year, so I'm on my 2nd co-op term right now. I don't know if there's anything else you want me to include there, or
no, that's great. That's
okay.
Great. And then so I guess you said this is your 2nd co-op. So where was your first co-op placement at? And then what is the 2nd one? And are they the same? Are they different?
Yeah. So my 2 co-op experiences have been very different. So my first one, I worked at Rosa Flora Limited in Dunnville, Ontario. So that's a wholesale cut flower cut flower distributor. So they distribute flowers in Southern Ontario and in the United States. And my current co-op placement is at VDO, which is an accounting firm. I'm at the Mount Forest location right now.
Okay, wow, okay. Those sound like drastically different.
Oh, they are.
And okay, so let's start with the first one. How did you find your co-op? I mean, did you find it through Redeemer? Did you know people and then made it work?
So my first one is a bit of a story because I was convinced that I was going to live at home for my first co-op. So I'm from Grey County. So I was like looking at job postings just in my like hometown, looking for something that kind of fit my like degree and everything. But I wasn't having much luck, and I just kind of kept going. And then Bruce was like, you might have to like expand your horizons there a little bit. So I started looking at some other postings. And I still wasn't having much luck. And then November rolled around and I was like, okay, maybe I should start looking like at the Redeemer job board a bit more. Just broaden my radius, I guess. And then I found this posting from Rosa Flora, and and the first thing I did was find it on Google Maps, and it was 3 hours from my place. And I was like, oh, but I was like, you know what? I'll apply and I'll see what happens. So sure enough, unexpectedly that very night, like it was like 5 o'clock on a Friday, I get a phone call and I had like a mini interview, and they're like, oh, we want you to come visit. So I did, and I kind of fell in love with it when I went there. So I did accept that job and I relocated. So that was the story of finding my first one. My second one, I started...
Just one sec. Just for anyone... No, I just want to clarify for any of our listeners. So that's really cool. And it's fantastic that you were able to use the Redeemer job board and find that. But you mentioned that Bruce kind of challenged you to broaden your search a little bit there. Bruce is the director of our Career Center. And so that's awesome that you took advantage of that resource. So was that just like... Did you reach out to Bruce? Like, did you just email him, call him, see him in the hallway?
Kind of throughout the job search process, Bruce always supports students throughout that. So we always kind of keep him up to date on where we're applying and where we're looking, and if we find anything, just so he can kind of support us in our job search journey. Because reality is it's not always easy finding a job, and sometimes it takes a long time. Sometimes you have to look in like many different places to find something that kind of fits your scenario and your interests. But he has tons of expertise on that, so he was a huge resource in my job search as well.
Awesome. Oh, awesome. Okay. And so, that's really interesting and that you were able to, use Bruce in that way. And so shout out Bruce. I sort of cut you off. I just wanted to make sure
Oh,
that
no
we
worries.
shouted out Bruce, because we love the work that he does in the Career Center, the entire Career Center team for sure. But anyway, I interrupted you. You had a second internship
Hmm.
co-op that we explained about the difference between internships and co-ops in another episode. But your co-op, your second co-op, how did you go about finding your second co-op?
Yeah. So, although I love my first co-op, I decided to go with something different just to get a different experience.
Hmm.
Just to, yeah, broaden my perspective a little bit and get experience in different areas. So, I started job searching really early. Like, I started in the fall for my like for my searching because I was going to start in May. So, I was looking all around, and one of the things I did was like just general job boards like Indeed and all those sorts of things, putting up job alerts and whatnot. And then I would get notifications, and then I applied to a couple. And then sometimes I found more helpful is just thinking of specific businesses and looking at their websites, because not all of them post on the general job postings. So I
Right.
did that with BDO, and then I found this posting, and it was for like agriculture accounting, um, for a co-op placement, and then I applied and had a couple of interviews. I Before I accepted that job, I had gotten an offer from a different accounting firm, but I did turn them down. So you don't have to accept the first co-op
Yeah.
placement that you get offered. It's worth exploring, and if you start early, you have that flexibility. So that would be one of my recommendations in the job search process: is it's never too early. So always kind of keep your eyes open.
Okay, that's some really good advice for anyone who's looking for a co-op. And on that note, I'll maybe ask this question now: is what would you tell either a current Redeemer student who's looking into co-ops and trying to find that co-op that will help with their education, or for a student who they're new to university, co-ops seem like they're so far away, but they're just looking into just trying to get into university, let alone getting a co-op on top of that. What
Yeah.
would you say to people that are in kind of that seeker phase of looking for experiential learning opportunities?
I would say just be open to opportunities. My first co-op, especially, I never expected to be in Dunnville. I never expected to be working at a wholesale flower distributor. But by doing things that you don't expect to be doing, you learn so much. And I think God used that time that I was there uh, to help me grow in so many ways, not only like professionally, but like personally as well, as I relocated in a new area and networked in that way and got involved in a new community. And also just, yeah, through my position, I got the key is saying yes, always
Yeah.
saying yes to new opportunities, like whether it's taking on a new project, or um, yeah, joining a team to work on on a specific project, or going to a certain event, or those sorts of things. It's always like kind of seeking out those opportunities to learn and to kind of show your competencies, because that's where you can figure out how to grow those competencies. And maybe
Absolutely.
unless you have
No,
something to say there.
go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
okay.
That's no,
And
I was just agreeing. Absolutely. That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. But you continue.
okay. And then to those who are like kind of on the fence about co-op or experiential learning, I always say like I have no regrets about it. I think it's like been the best thing ever, because not only are you challenged because you're applying your learning as you learn. So you learn a little bit, and then you go out on placement, and then you come back. I found coming back was a really cool experience, because you come back with such a different perspective, because you're thinking about when you're learning things in class, you're like, oh, well, this is how they actually use it, and um, this is why this is valuable, and you just approach it with a different perspective, and yeah, you even approach your work with a different perspective. I found I knew like organizational skills, and even like especially working in teams. I My first co-op placement was like a lot of team projects and everything. And so coming back and working in teams for school projects, you learn how to not get overwhelmed and work with people of different competencies and different strengths and interests. And you learn how to like mesh that all together and produce like quality deliverables.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that sounds like you've learned a lot from both your experiences here. But could you maybe talk about and I know you're still in your second co-op, but like when did you start it?
I just started in May.
Okay. Oh, okay. So you've been
Yeah.
there for a little bit. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So what would you say, either all encompassing or of each one individually, has been kind of your favorite experience as being part of these different organizations?
Like from each organization or?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll start with my first co-op placement. At my first placement at Rosa Flora, my favorite thing was just I was heavily involved in like logistics and international trade, and I learned so much through that, and I got so many different opportunities to that. And so one of my favorite things about that was I didn't feel like a co-op student because I was given a lot of responsibility. I was on call support for drivers. I was, I don't know, making all these arrangements for special shipments to the States and all those sorts of things. I felt like I was full-time permanent staff basically by the responsibilities that they gave me.
That's awesome.
It
Wow.
just it's really empowering, right? So
Yeah.
I loved that, and I just felt like there was lots of like adrenaline and everything with that job. It was very like, this has to be done right now, and like, yeah, like you trucks breaking down, you have shipments that need to go across the border, all that sort of thing. So just kind of like the sense of urgency, and you feel like what you do matters immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So I really enjoyed that at Rosa Flora. And yeah, working on teams, that was a big thing, special projects. And just, I had a lot of flexibility there in terms of, I had a lot of independence in the work that I pursued. Like if there was an idea that I had to improve operations in some way, I would talk to my supervisor about it and he'd be like, oh yeah, go for it. And we'd start a new project in relation to that. So that was really empowering. And I felt like I grew a lot because of that.
And that was just clear. That was an 8-month co-op.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a lot to learn it from 8 months. That's amazing. Wow. That's great.
Yeah. And to be fair, I did extend so after my 8-month placement, I did extend my work term there. I worked part-time during the school year all year. So I had Fridays off. So I just worked every Friday.
That's fantastic.
That's always an option. Some employers are really flexible with part-time continuation of employment. So that's something else people can keep in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great advice right there. And what about with this second co-op? Is there a part that you're really thankful that you're learning, or a favorite part at all?
Yeah. So at my current placement, I'm learning a lot about taxation and like financial reporting and everything, which I think is really valuable because tax impacts everything.
Absolutely.
So learning about that has been really cool. And I just feel like it's opened my eyes to like another side of business. When I was at Rosa Flora, I didn't do anything with finance, anything like accounting wise or anything. So I'm just kind of getting the missing piece this time. So that's been really cool. And I feel like wherever I end up career wise, or even just personally, it's going to be valuable because I'm just going to have a better sense of the connections between different like financial decisions and like, and yeah, like investments and capital assets and all that sort of thing. So just learning how to make good financial decisions and have like a long-term vision on how it impacts different areas.
That's really interesting, Michelle. And it sounds like you've learned a lot of things from both your co-op placements, and you've already kind of touched on this. But could you maybe just focus it? How would you say your work, placements, your co-ops have complemented your education at Redeemer?
Yeah. So throughout my placements, I've been challenged to like apply things that I've learned, But then coming back to the classroom, I've been challenged to kind of like work backwards again and see like, oh, this is how it is in the workplace. How does that apply back to like theory, or how can I use those connections? So one example of this would be after my co-op placement. So my last co-op placement I finished in September, and then went back to school. And then in that next school year, one of my courses was sales management. And in that course, we had to do a project where we had to develop a new, using components developed by an engineering firm. We had to create like a solution, like kind of combining these different elements together to create like a new product sort of thing. So when we were doing this, it was kind of, the products had to do with like insulation and like heating products that were made with like aerospace insulation sort of thing. So when we were doing this, I was kind of inspired from my co-op placement about what we could produce for a product. So because at my co-op placement, we had transported fresh cut flowers, we had temperature regulated trucks. So with my team, we developed a solution that could be installed in a straight box truck that would like regulate temperature more effectively. And so I got feedback from my co-op employers on like better designs for how they could do this, and like just feedback so that we could make the best solution possible. And then when we did our project, we like kind of catered it towards them. Like our final presentation was kind of like a special pitch for their company. So that was really cool to be able to kind of combine our like project with like real world solutions. And then you're like, it just makes it, you feel like it's delivering value to the business, but also to you as you learn and develop the product, because you're like, oh, this is like a practical solution that people would actually use and that would actually deliver value to businesses.
That's fantastic. Wow. Thank you for sharing. I see why Bruce recommended you to be interviewed for this podcast episode. Just one more kind of thing before we finish off our interview is, could you give our listeners and viewers a little bit of just perspective of the timeline? So you start at Redeemer in what year?
Oh, my personal start year?
Yeah.
I started in fall of 2019.
Okay, so 2019, and then 2020, and then was it 2021 when you did your first co-op placement?
Yes, January. And so that went from January to September 2022.
Okay, yep. And then you went
back to school for a full year.
For a full year, and then now you're in second co-op placement, which will finish in January.
In May and finishes in January.
In January, and then
or like end of December.
And then what semester will you graduate then?
So I go back to school in January and I graduate in April. So it's just one semester after that second co-op.
Okay. Yeah. I just wanted to give our listeners a sense of what the co-op would look like. And is that different for other students, or is that pretty standard for business?
No, that's a standard. So that's a standard approach. Then there's a prep class as well that you take this semester before you go on your first co-op placement. So that is a course that kind of takes you through like resumes, cover letters, job searching. So if you're worried about anything related to co-op, that's kind of your like high level course that gets you all ready. You have lots of support heading into your first placement.
Awesome. No, that's good. That's very good to know. Well, Michelle, this has been a lot of fun. This has been, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the podcast. And this was very informative for myself, and I'm sure it's informative for our viewers as well. And blessings on you as you finish your second co-op term and finish your time at Redeemer, and finish well, and good luck on actually one last thing. Do you think these co-op placements have impacted what you're going to do after you graduate?
I think for sure they've given me skills and experience that will help me when I'm looking for a career afterwards. I don't know exactly where I want to go or what I want to do. I have some ideas, but nothing in stone. But I think it kind of gives you a stepping stone in terms of having some experience put on your resume that's actually related to your schooling. That's not just like your typical summer jobs and that sort of thing. And it gives you different connections for references, but also for job searching. People can recommend different places to look that may be suited towards your skills after they know having had work with you.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Michelle, for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure to join.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Redeemer Podcast. Thank you again to Michelle for coming on and sharing about her experiences during her co-op placements. We hope you enjoyed our conversation as much as we did. If you would like more information about Redeemer, please check out our website, redeemer.ca, and you can always connect with the admissions department by emailing admissions@redeemer.ca if you're interested in applying. God bless, and we'll see you in the next video.